Hi, I'm Beth from Sew Country, and today's tutorial is for the Mazie mini backpack, and this is from Stitches by Christy. I have not sewn this pattern before, so we'll be going through it together for the first time. I've sewn several of these designers' patterns though, and I really like them. I feel like they come together really nice. The patterns are easy to follow. All of my materials today are coming from J&R Edwards. That includes the exterior, the lining, the accent, the zipper tape, and the webbing. We're going to go through all the pieces we need first. Now I'm going to tell you, it took me a little while to cut everything out. I'm a very slow cutter, but there was never a point where I was confused or stressed because of the way she breaks down the cutting in this pattern. So I'm going to kind of explain it the way she does so that you don't feel overwhelmed either. The first thing we'll do is we'll separate this stack of cut pieces into kind of like sections, and that's the way she does it in the pattern. In the pattern, you don't get a full cut list. You get a cut list that's like, here's your front, here's your back, here's your inside. And it really does help to make it come together easier and for your mind to understand what you're working on. We're going to go over the front first, but if you don't want to go through the steps to make the unique front pocket, she does give you the pattern piece for a plain front panel. This would be perfect if you were in a hurry or if you have a beautiful panel that you want to showcase on this backpack. I'm going to set these other pieces aside just for a minute while we talk about the front first. This is going to be the pieces we will need to create that front pocket. Now, all of my materials I'm using, I have interfaced with a medium weight interfacing, which is a SF101 or equivalent. This print is going to be a cotton canvas, but the other two prints, both my lining and the accent, are both just a cotton woven. So to construct this front, first thing we'll do is we'll have this piece right here. Now, this is not the order we're sewing it. I just want to show you kind of what it looks like. Your zipper will go right around here, so your zipper will be shown on the front of this. Then you're going to have your front pocket. On the back of your front pocket, you'll have this little lining piece, so whenever you flip down your front pocket, this will be the piece that's shown right here. Whenever you open that front pocket, what will be shown is this backing piece, like this. It will have a slip pocket attached to it. That will be this accent piece for mine. After we complete that, then we are going to have a bottom accent at the bottom. So let's break down all these pieces individually. So for mine, my front pocket, the bottom accent, and this top ring will all be the same print. So mine from the outside will all look the same. Mine won't have any contrast, but you definitely could do contrast. This piece right here is called your main piece. You're only going to have one of these. I'm going to set this aside. You'll have your zipper cut to the measurements given the pattern. I'm going to choose to put 2 zipper pulls on that zipper. The next thing you'll have is this front pocket, and you will have an exterior and a lining piece for it. Then you're going to have a pocket backing. That is going to be just one piece, and I'm choosing mine to be my lining piece. We're going to have a bottom accent, I think this is called, yeah, bottom accent, just one piece of this, and you'll have it at the bottom of the bag, and it'll be the last thing we attach when we're doing that front pocket piece. And then this piece will be my slip pocket, only one for it. For the slip pocket, I'm going to go ahead before we go on to anything else and clip it right sides together. This will be one of the first things we sew. As always, I'll be sewing things a little bit out of order. I prefer to sew a few simple pieces all at once. It kind of helps me, one, to get motivated to get started in sewing everything, and two, I do it in a way so that I get rid of as many small pieces as possible right in the beginning. So I already feel like I'm making a lot of progress. It just kind of helps me mentally. But these will be the pieces we're going to use to create that front pocket. So let's stack those back up, and then we'll go on to the next section. I keep these all clipped together. When I'll cut them, I cut them one section at a time, clip them together one at a time, and it just helps. If you notice, I even wrote on the back of mine just kind of some notes so that it would help me kind of keep in my head what I'm doing next and keep myself organized. It's not that I have to do it. It's not that the pattern's so hard that I need to do it. It's just the way my brain prefers to handle a pattern, so that's what I do. So that's my front pocket. Let's go on to that back exterior. To create that back piece, we're going to have a back bottom 1 and a back bottom 2. You'll have both an exterior and a lining for both of those pieces. The zipper will go in between and we'll attach the pull and zipper tabs to it. After we have that completed, we will base that around the lining piece. So this will be the piece you will see when you open up your zipper. This will be the top of the back. So you can see that rounded piece will go around there. And then this is going to be the anchor. We will attach this at the very end. This part will be what hides the ends of these straps on the back of the bag. So these are the pieces we need for the back. I won't be working on any of the back pieces in the beginning, so I'm just going to go ahead and set these off camera and get them out of the way for right now. And let's talk about the base. So for the base, we have the bottom exterior base, and then we do have the lining. Now for these two pieces, the way they're going to be sewn is we're just going to lay them together. I'm going to go ahead and add some clips, and then I'm just going to baste around. This will be one of the first things I do also to get this part done. But for this bag, only the bottom will be bound. The rest of it will be a birthed bag, but this part will have binding on it. So you will need a little bit of binding. I have not cut binding yet, but I will by the time we get to this. For this base, I did choose to add a layer of fleece on both the exterior and the lining. You could add Decaville light, you could add Decaville heavy, whatever you want to make your base feel a little bit more solid, but I would suggest adding something, foam, fleece, Decaville light or heavy, whatever you want to this base piece. I'm going to set this over here because that'll be one of the first things we sew up also. Our straps are made a little bit different. They're going to be two components. We're going to have these strap pieces, but we're also going to have webbing. So the webbing, I've already got it cut to the measurements in the pattern. For these strap pieces, what you have to do is you have to add a piece of foam on it. This is just going to give it a little bit more padding. The pattern tells you how far down to place that foam at the beginning, and then you just center it on the sides. I used a fusible foam, so I did attach mine with a heat press, and so mine is attached on there. And also for the hardware, you will need an adjustable bar to add to the webbing, so you will need 2 adjustable bars and 2 pieces of the webbing. Talk about how we do this gusset and all the pieces you will need. You will need your zipper tape. You can use 1 or 2 zipper pulls. I'm using 2 on mine. Your zipper panels, you'll have 2 lining and then 2 exterior. I did want my zipper gusset pieces a little bit more sturdy, so I added a piece of fleece on the back, and I did keep it in the seam allowance. I actually need to trim around there a little bit. It's a little, I didn't trim it after I fused it on there, so I'll need to trim that up. But this will give it a little bit more support, so it's not just sagging and looking kind of wonky at the end there. This gusset is a little bit fancier of a gusset. It has a couple different options. I'm not doing all the options on this gusset, and I will explain why. But the first thing I need to say is that we will have 2 gusset side pieces, 2 exteriors, 2 lining. I did not add any fleece onto these. I'm wondering if I should have, but I didn't because we're adding a pocket onto each of these side gusset pieces. I felt like that extra bulk would be plenty, and so I didn't add anything on there, but I may regret that later. For these pocket pieces, this is my exterior piece. You can see that my lining piece is quite a bit bigger, and there's a reason for that, and it is to, if you want to have a little bit of this poking through, which I probably will on mine, so I left mine longer. But if you're not worried about that, you could cut yours all the same if you wanted to. Now, the extra thing on this is that she does give you templates for this pocket piece to do kind of like a, I think she calls it a peekaboo, but it's like a reverse applique. I'm not doing it on this one. I could do it even though it's a cotton woven. You could do it. It's just something extra, and I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to continue on. But if you have any questions about that, definitely reach out to me or the designer. but these are the pieces you will use to create that gusset. So I'm going to set my pocket pieces aside with the gusset because this will be one of the first few things we work on. Now we're left with our interior pieces. She has our interiors broke down by interior 1 and interior 2. We're going to start with that interior 2. My interior 2 has 2 pieces. I have 2 pieces, but I really don't need 2 pieces. For this second side, she has a key minder, so it would be just a piece of fabric folded with a swivel hook attached so that you could clip your keys to it. Obviously, you can tell that my mini backpack is going to be more kid orientated. I did not need a key minder in it. I didn't make the choice to not use the key minder until I'd already cut this out. But if you want to do the key minder, it's very simple to add it, and you would just base it in there before you attach these 2 pieces together. Since I'm not adding mine, all I need to do is take my back top, my back bottom, and just fold them right sides. Just place them right sides together and add a few clips. That will also be one of the first things I sew because that's a very simple sew to get started. The last thing we're going to talk about is the first side of the interior. Now on this one, we are going to be doing a zipper pocket. We will have zipper tape, zipper tabs, 1 zipper pocket lining piece, and then again a top and a bottom. So the zipper will go right in between here. We will have the pocket lining attached to it. We will do this a little bit later. This step will be after we finish up our front. So I'm going to just set this aside for right now. And just a few other things. We will have all the zipper tabs. Like I said, you'll have a total of 12 zipper tabs. Here is your rectangular ring connectors. You'll have 2 pieces of that. Your webbing for your straps. You'll need a small piece of webbing as the grab handle. 2 adjustable bars. 2 adjustable bars. 2 rectangular rings. I'm using a total of 6 zipper pulls. You could get away with less. And then I'm also going to have these 2 connectors for the straps, and so this will be a raw edge material, so I don't have to worry about it fraying or anything like that. Those are all the pieces we need. Quite a few pieces, I know, but you don't have to use all these if you don't want to. You could definitely keep it as a much simpler sew if you wanted to. For me, let's go ahead and pull out that side 2. We're going to sew it right away. We're also going to pull out that base and work on it right away. And then one other thing, let's go ahead and grab that slip pocket that will be used for the front. Getting these few pieces started are just a simple way to get started with the bag. Now I have white thread in my bobbin and my needle. Someone mentioned that I should do more contrast threads so that you guys can see the stitches better. I'm going to try to do that just to help everything be seen and so that you guys can maybe see the stitches a little bit clearer. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll work with the base first and then we'll go through those other pieces. You can see I just sewed across that top edge on these 2 pieces here for the inside side too. I just based it around that exterior, and so that attached the exterior and the lining together. For that slip pocket, all I'm going to do is just sew all the way down that long side. Or maybe that's the short side. I can't remember, but you are just going to fold it right sides together and sew it so that you create a tube. Your sides will be left open. Make sure you use the seam allowance given the pattern. Make sure you backstitch when you start and you stop. Let's take out that inside too. Let's flip up that top piece, and so then we will top stitch on the top piece, so the seam will stay up, and we will just flip it up and attach that top to the seam. That is my interior side too. You may have a key minder on yours, but that is completed. I'm going to set this aside and move back on to the front pocket piece. Take out that slip pocket and let's just turn it right sides out. We can go ahead and set this base piece aside too. We won't be working on it anymore until the end. So we have the seam right here. Now the pattern designer tells us that we are not going to have this seam there at the top like we typically do. She tells us to push it down, and the pattern tells you how far to push it down. So I have that placement correct. This is what mine looks like. This seam is actually right here. I'm going to top stitch the top 1/8 of an inch away like we typically do. Then I'm also going to do a top stitch in the ditch, so that means directly in that seam along that seam line. So we're going to do 2 rows of top stitching on this pocket piece. You can see me pressing. If you want to take it over the iron, that's probably the smartest way to do it. Being a little lazy here, but definitely feel free to do that to get a better press on this. After you have both of the seams top stitched, then what you're going to do is you're going to pull out the backing piece. Now that is the bigger of those pockets. Let's pull that out. So you can see these 2 pockets are the same size, and if you put them, you can tell that one is bigger. That's the one we're going to attach this slip pocket to. The pattern tells us how far down to measure. So I have mine measured. I am going to just add some clips, and I'm just going to baste around the 3 sides, of course leaving that open at the top. The pattern gives you a measurement as to how far in to make this a divided pocket. That is a suggestion. Of course, you could do a center, you can do one side or the other side, you could do 3, whatever you want. So I'm not too worried about measuring that. I'm just going to choose like an option and kind of divide this pocket into half. You could leave the pocket wide open, but I've found when I leave pockets open, they're kind of bigger, you have that pulling and gapping that I don't like. So I almost always try to divide my pockets at least a little bit. A rookie mistake there, and I started sewing from the top. Whenever you sew from the top, it has a tendency to pull things down. Always sew from the bottom up. I wasn't thinking clearly and did that. It's okay, it doesn't look too bad. Make sure you top stitch at the top and the bottom so those stitches are locked into place. Now that you have this back piece done, we're going to set it aside just for a minute, and we're going to go ahead and grab out these pieces to start working on this zipper. So that is going to be our zipper pocket pieces. Let's grab the zipper itself, and let's go ahead and add the zipper tabs and the pull onto it. I'm going to use 2 pulls on that one, and then your zipper tabs are marked as to which zippers they are. So this is going to be our main zipper tabs. You're going to have 4 of those, and you're going to do those just like you would any other zipper tabs making a zipper sandwich. I have all of mine the same print, so it's not too hard for me to figure out which is which. I'm going to add my zipper pulls on one on each side, so they're both going to go into the middle whenever the bag is finished. Take one zipper tab, have it right sides up, lay your zipper tape directly on it, right sides up. Take the other zipper tab and place it right sides down. You can use a clip if you're afraid of shifting, or you can just pick it up and slide it over to your machine, whichever you prefer. Sew it with the seam allowance given in the pattern, and making sure that you back stitch when you start and stop. After we have that zipper pull on, we're going to pull them so that they're wrong sides together, and then top stitch just 1/8 of an inch away from that seam. Let's repeat those same steps for this other side. Now that we have the zipper tabs and pulls on, I'm just going to match up those seams, and I'm going to find where my center is on the zipper tape. I never cut into my zipper unless I absolutely have to, so I'm just going to use a marking tool here to mark the centers on both sides of that zipper tape. I'll take this lining piece and start with it first. I'll find its center. I'll just make a crease right there, match up I'm going to move these pulls a little bit out of the way. Take the center on the zipper, the center on this lining piece, and that way I can just baste this on right sides up. Now, the pattern designer does tell us that we can make tiny snips along this curve if we feel we need to make sure that curve is sewn on easily. So definitely do that. I do suggest, and the pattern designer does too, to not cut into your zipper tape. That can cause fraying for sure over time, and you would hate for that to happen if you spend so much time working on a pattern. Now what I do is I just put a few clips right there at the top, and then I take the bottom and pull it down and clip the bottom of the tab with the bottom of that front pocket lining piece. Add a few clips here. You can even add one across the bottom even though you're not sewing there, just to kind of help stabilize it. And then you can start just slowly working up and easing that curve in. So now we have the zipper completely clipped around. I have my zipper tabs ending at the same spot, so we're going to hope that while I'm basting around here, I don't have too much shifting. I want these to try to stay even, so you can see they're even there. So let's go ahead and start on one side. We're going to go slow. We're just going to baste just 1/8 of an inch all the way around here. If you find that you're having slipping, if your zipper tape is not staying in line with the raw edge of that pocket, go ahead and pull out your hemostat, your stiletto, whatever you need to keep it in place. What I'll do now is I'll grab that exterior pocket. So this is the exterior piece. I'm going to lay it right sides down and do that same process all over again. So you find your center and you start clipping that center spot first. Do a couple clips, and this time you will have to kind of move your zipper pulls around, so I'll go ahead and take them down to one side first. Let's go ahead and get that center mark so I know where my center is. Clip that in place. Get a few clips there at the top and then go down to the bottom, clip that. We're going to clip all the way around, and now this time we're going to come in with that full seam allowance to get these two pieces attached. After we sew it all the way around with the correct seam allowance, we'll turn it through the bottom and then we'll top stitch. So you can see right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this in and make it kind of concave, so it's like a little bowl, and do it that way. If you feel like it's easier, you could go ahead and open your zipper tape. That's completely fine too, like unzip everything. If you need to make snips on your pocket piece, you can do that as well. Try to avoid making any snips in your actual zipper tape. So push it in and make it a little bit easier for yourself to sew, or unzip it, however you want to do it. Start on one end, make sure you back stitch. And then we're just going to go around with that proper seam allowance. This time it should be a little bit easier. What you're going to do is just kind of use your finger to push to make sure the zipper tape stays flat. You really don't have to worry too much about things shifting because the lining and the exterior will be easier to stay together on this round. You can see I'm flipping this up and kind of sewing it, kind of like letting it kind of curve up. I find that's easier and I have less risk of it being kind of wrinkled or a bump underneath when I do it that way. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip this right sides out, and I'm going to top stitch all along that same seam. I'll pull everything tight and flat to make sure I get a really nice top stitch. So So now we have everything top stitched. Let's go ahead and grab out that pocket backing that has our slip pocket attached to it. So what we want to do now is we want to baste this in place. We know that when we open the pocket, we need to be able to see that slip pocket. So we're just going to put this, have that pocket piece right sides up, lay down this front pocket right sides up, and we're going to start matching everything up. Find your center mark and match it up with the center mark of the unsewn edge of your zipper tape. Let's just put a few clips there along the top, and then we'll match up the bottom just like we did earlier with the other side of the zipper tape. Once you have that clipped in place, you're just going to baste again. It's okay if things look a little bunchy right now. The main thing is just to take your time while you're sewing and basting this together, and don't sew over any pucker. So even if you just have to take one stitch and then smooth, do that and just get it attached. My zipper tape is trying to shift, so I'm just going to pull it and hold it with my hemostats while I sew and get it attached. We're just doing that basting stitch, just that 1/8 of an inch. It's all we're trying to do is get it secured. So I have the zipper attached to the backing, so the pocket has that lining to it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out that top piece now. And this is the way to look in the end. So I know since I want it to look that way, I'm going to have to attach it to this free edge of the zipper up here, right sides together. So let's find the center marks of both of those so that we can attach it on properly. So there's the center mark on the zipper. Here's the center mark on this top main piece. Go ahead and have it orientated this way and then just flip it down and you will match up those center marks. Let's go ahead and clip a few times here just to kind of stabilize that top piece, and then we will go ahead and add it to the bottom just like we did with the other pieces. Once we get that straight part, we will just ease that curve in. If we need to make adjustments, we can go back and do it, but we'll try to get it to all fit in this way. I'm going to go ahead and pop it out so that it can kind of curve around there. Oh, it's going to fit perfectly. We're going to do those same steps on the other side. Then we're going to sew this all the way around with the full seam allowance given in the pattern to attach that last piece to this pocket. When you're going around these curves, like I've said before, just make sure you only take one stitch at a time and flatten everything out. You don't want to sew over any puckers or anything. It doesn't matter if it's like bunched up here, don't worry about that. Just flatten out the spot you're sewing over. If it's trying to pull away, pull out your hemostats, but just flatten one spot at a time to sew over that. It'll look fine in the end as long as you don't sew over any puckers or anything like that. Now that we have that sewn, go ahead and flip it out. Make sure everything looks good. And now what you're going to do is you're going to attach this seam to this piece right here. So we're going to just lay that flat and go around top stitching 1/8 of an inch away. Again, just make sure you're holding everything tight so you can get a nice top stitch. Keep your top stitch, you'll want to check to make sure that you're top stitching over that seam. Your seam's going to want to kind of flip down at times, so just make sure you can feel it with your fingers and pull it up if you need to. Flip it, check it, see, and have it where it needs to be. If you wanted, you could add a tag here, you could add a tag on this pocket, wherever you want to add a tag. I'm not going to add a tag just because my print's kind of busy and I don't want to distract from it. So I'm just going to take that bottom accent piece, flip it up right sides together. If it's directional, definitely make sure you pay attention to the direction. Let's go ahead and sew that, and then we will flip it down and top stitch it as well. Here is that front pocket. It's looking super cute. Don't worry if that's wavy. That'll be attached to the gusset and straightened out later, but this looks adorable. Let's just check our adorable pocket too. Flip it down, and it's just beautiful. Great design. Okay, we're gonna set this aside, and now we're gonna start working on our gusset. First thing I'm gonna do when I'm working with the gusset is I'm gonna take one of the zipper gusset pieces, the lining, and lay it right sides up. I'm gonna take my zipper, and I did go ahead and put the pulls on there. I usually don't, but I don't know, wasn't thinking to put them on there. But I'm gonna have my zipper tape right sides up, and I'm just gonna match up that long raw edge of both, and I'm gonna base this in place. This is an unnecessary step, but it's just a little bit easier for me, and I find it quicker. I don't have to worry about clipping or holding things down so much, and I can just sew this all the way down that long side, and I'll just use an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So now that I have that lining attached, I'm going to add this exterior piece. Now I'm going to tell you, I'm the worst with getting these exterior pieces to go the way I want. Fortunately though, on mine, my little geckos, my little lizards here are looking both ways. So you can see no matter which way I put it on, it's going to be okay. So I am fortunate in that. But if yours is directional, make sure you have it going in the way you want, whichever way that is. Have your exterior right sides up, and then just take it and flip it right sides down, matching up those short ends and that long edge. You can clip if you want, but I'm not going to clip. I'm just going to take it on my machine just like this and hold it in place, and then I'll just start sewing it, and I'll just make sure as I'm sewing it that I'm lining it up as I go using the full seam allowance given in the pattern. Once you have that sewn together, just pull the two zipper panels apart. And let's go ahead and top stitch. Now typically I like to base these first, but I'm not going to on this one. I'm just going to top stitch, and I'm just going to make sure that I'm pulling both the exterior and the lining away. The lining has a tendency to want to shrink up and get behind that zipper, so don't let it. So this is how the first side looks. I'm going to go ahead and repeat those same steps to attach the other zipper gussets to the other side of the zipper, and when I come back we will go ahead and have our edges trimmed up, and we'll be ready to attach the gusset side pieces. I am seriously already in love with how adorable this looks. The colors, the style of it, it is turning out so cute already. So now that we have this zipper panels attached to this zipper, we're going to take out the side panel pieces. Let me see exactly, gusset sides are what these are called. So these are not the pockets. Make sure you don't get those confused. But what you'll want to do on these is you'll lay your lining piece right sides up, take that zipper gusset and lay it right on top, matching up those short edges. So basically the linings are going to be right sides together, and then we will come back in with an exterior and lay it right sides down. You can put a few clips in place there. You could base this if you wanted to, but where it's such a short distance, I feel like it'll be okay. I'm going to take this over to the machine. What I'll do is I'm just going to sew with the seam allowance given in the pattern here. Now that I have that sewn, I'm going to pull these two gusset pieces apart, pull them really nice and tight, and let's go ahead and top stitch this down. Now before I sew on the other side, I'm going to set these two just to the side for a minute, and I'm going to pull out these pocket pieces. So what you're going to do is you're going to have this lining piece right sides up, take your exterior piece, and let's place it right sides down, matching up that edge along there. We're going to sew it with the seam allowance given in the pattern. And the reason for that extra length is because what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that seam allowance up, and I'm just going to wrap that lining around. And so you can see then they end up being the same size and I get this really pretty pop of color or contrast or faux binding, however you want to call it, there at the top. You don't have to do that. You can do it the traditional way and just trim off the bottom. It's just, I really think that looks nice. So I'm going to do mine like that. Let me get it all nice and even. And let's just top stitch along that edge. So what we're going to do is we're going to separate these two pieces. Take that lining side and slip it underneath there. We should only have the gusset piece here. We are going to make some measurements. After you get the measurement on the exterior only, not the lining, place the bottom of that pocket on that line you drew. The rest of your pocket we going down. So this is the bottom. Here's the top down here. Place it on that line or that measurement, and let's sew across here, and then we will flip it back up, reducing the bulk. So there's a lot of bulk in that bottom seam. So now that we have that stitched in place, go ahead and flip it up. And then the pattern tells us we are going to do 2 rows of top stitching. Okay, now that you have that stitched in place, go ahead and pull that lining back down. And then let's clip in those side edges. You can see this is going to make that pocket like a little bit of a 3D pocket, a little bit elevated. Let's go ahead and place some clips along those edges. Do the same thing on this other side just to give it a little bit of a lift. Okay, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to baste down these 2 sides through all layers, the lining and the exterior and the pocket, and that'll have that part completed. Now, like I said, if you wanted, the pattern does give you options to embellish this pocket with a little bit of a peekaboo pocket. You could use that feature and make it even a little bit more fancy. I'm okay with not doing it on this one. Maybe I'll do it on a different one. Look at that adorable pocket. This pattern is so stinking cute. I'm in love with it. I'm going to take the time off camera to do the same exact steps to get the other pocket made and to finish the other side of the gusset. So we are going to go ahead and complete side 1 of the lining. We did the side 2 earlier, so let's go ahead and get started first by pulling out the zipper and adding the zipper tabs. My zipper tabs are all the same, so it really doesn't matter which is exterior, which is lining to me. So I'm just going to put the lining, right sides up, lay my zipper tape right sides up on top of it. Take the exterior tab and put it down. Right sides on, I got 2 of them in there, let me get that. Right sides down onto the exterior of the zipper. So it's a zipper sandwich with the tabs being right sides together and the zipper just being in between that. Let's sew that with the seam allowance given the pattern, and then we will pull the zipper tabs back and top stitch. Let's go ahead and grab out the top and the bottom piece. Now this is the way I want my pull to close on the end. So I'm just going to flip it down like this. I just want to center these zipper tabs on there, and I'm just going to baste this in place. If you want, you can go ahead and add that lining piece and do this all in one. I'm just feeling a little bit lazy today. I'm going to do them one at a time. Let's go ahead and take that lining piece and go ahead and clip it on there, center it, and go ahead and sew with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Flip that zipper up. Let's top stitch. And we're going to pull it down. So now we have the bottom done, but we don't have anything here at the top. We're just going to flip this up. Just pull it straight up there. And let's baste that lining in place. Make sure that the lining pocket is even on both sides there and it's laying nicely. And you are just going to pull it up so that raw edge matches the raw edge of the zipper. We're just basting this in place. Let's go ahead and take that top piece, flip it down. So this is the way it would look in the end. Flip it right sides together, match up the sides and that top edge of the zipper, and let's sew with the full seam allowance given in the pattern. Now that we have that sewn together, just go ahead and flip up just that top, leaving the lining, of course, down for the zipper pocket. And let's go ahead, let me get that thread out of the way. And let's go ahead and top stitch along the top part of that lining piece with the seam allowance right underneath it so that you're attaching the top to that seam allowance. Time to complete the back of the bag. So I am going to start by adding the zipper pull to the zipper and then adding the zipper tabs. I'm going to add these zipper tabs the same way I've done the other zipper tabs, so I'm not going to go into showing them, but I did at least want to show that we are doing it the same. So now that we have the zipper completed, let's pull out those side pieces. I think this is called back bottom one. Yes, back bottom one. So we have an exterior and a lining. Mine is, it's not really directional so much, but I think I want it to go this way. So this is going to be my top and this is going to be the lining. So what I'm going to do is make sure that I get this going the right way. I want the zipper going up to the top, of course, on this side. So what I'm going to do first is go ahead and sew that first so I don't get confused on that, so that when it flips over it's the right way, and then I'll add the lining in a minute. Oh look, I did one of my little tabs wrong. I'm not going to worry about it. No one's going to see it, but don't do your tabs wrong like I did. Okay, go ahead and center that zipper. And let's baste that in place first. If you don't want to baste, you can go ahead and add your lining and do it all in the same step. I am just going to do mine one at a time. So let's go ahead and just do a common sense check. My pull is going up. The small side is here perfectly the way I want it. The larger part is going to be attached to the other side of the zipper over here. So now that I know I have that correct, let's go ahead and just put that lining right sides together with the exterior, and this time I will sew with the full seam allowance, and then I will pull these two apart and top stitch. Now that I got the first side done, I'm going to go ahead and grab out those other two pieces. This is called my back bottom two. I have my lining right sides up. I'm going to lay my zipper right sides up, matching up that edge. Let's just baste that in place, or you could skip this step and go ahead and sew it all together. Then once you have it orientated the way you want it to go, flip it over so that it is right sides together with the zipper. Make sure you match up not only this edge, but both of these sides as well. Sew this in place with the full seam allowance, then pull it apart and top stitch just like you did the other side. You will have to move that zipper pull out of the way. Go ahead when you top stitch and make sure you have that opened up. Make sure your linings are not, you're not leaving it over like that. So you want to pull both of those pieces together and then top stitch through all of them, the lining, the exterior, the seam as well. Now that you have that pocket completed, you can go ahead and trim up your zipper tabs, and if you have any overhang, go ahead and grab out that backing piece. I think it's called, yes, pocket backing. Have it orientated the way you want it to go if it's directional, and then it'll be right sides up, and simply lay this right sides up on top of it. It should fit pretty close to perfectly. Go ahead and baste all around here, and when I baste, I just do 1/8 of an inch away. I'm going to make sure I hold everything flat so it lays nice and flat. Go ahead and take that top piece now and let's flip it down onto the top. I do have some overhang I need to trim, but I'm just going to leave it. It'll get caught in there. I'm not too worried about it. But I'm going to line up this long edge with the top of this pocket piece. They'll be right sides together. You're sewing again with the seam allowance given in the pattern. And then we will once again flip it up. And you will sew onto the top piece, having the seam allowance underneath it. So the seam allowance will stay up, and your top piece will just flip up on top of it. You can see that's staying up, just flipping it up, pushing it flat. And then I'm just going to top stitch right there. So I'm going to place the bottom edge of my top strap anchor right up against that seam, and I'm going to sew it in place, and then I'm going to set it aside. So we'll attach it here. Make sure you lock in those stitches, and I'm just kind of butting it right up against there. A mark in the middle of this top strap anchor, and I'm going to go ahead and pull out that grab handle. I'm just going to fold it in half like this, and I'm going to baste it in place right there where that center mark is. If you don't want it as tightly closed as mine, you can open it a little bit, but basically you want to have it centered and have it right there above that anchor, so whenever you flip it up, it will cover the raw edges. We're also going to add the handles there as well. I'm back stitching several times on both of these pieces just to make sure that they're going to kind of stay down, because you can see there's a little bit of pressure and tension on it where it is kind of a curve. So I'm going to make sure they stay in place. So there is that. Now let's work on the strap. I did one off camera just to kind of learn how it goes together. It is super cute. I love this. I've never sewn a strap like this, and this is a really fun way to do it. So let's pull out the one that I have not sewn, and let's go over those steps. I went ahead and added my foam. The pattern does say to do this, add the foam a little bit later, so I'm sorry I went ahead and did mine, but it's okay. It worked fine on the other one. You draw a line on one side of the long edge. So I did that, used the pattern measurements for that. And then she says you can use double-sided tape. If you know me, you know I do not use double-sided tape. I use glue sticks for things like this. So what I do, and I usually do this over the iron, so it probably won't stick so good because I usually put the heat of the iron on it to kind of set this glue. You know, of course, a glue stick is not going to be a permanent fix. It's just to kind of hold it in place for a little while, but usually the iron helps to set it. But I think it'll stay long enough for this purpose. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to fold that raw edge. I'm going to bring it close. I know you might not see it on camera, but I don't want to mess up my measurements. And I'm just going to fold that raw edge up to that line I drew, using my finger to press it into the glue so it kind of stays. So I will probably take this over to the iron real quick so that it will stay down for the next step. I have that ironed in place. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these bottom edges and I'm going to fold them to the center, and it's going to make this really cool little point. Now my last one, I didn't have this perfectly even, and I'm going to try to do it a little bit better this time. Again, whenever I did the first one, I had it over the iron just to kind of press it flat. I'm going to try to not do that and just kind of clip it here for this next step. So then what we do after we have that clipped, we're going to take this unfolded edge and we're going to wrap it all the way over. It's going to go a little bit further than halfway. I'm going to use my clips to just kind of hold this in place. And you can see I'm having that foam right here against the crease, so that's my stopping point. Now that I have that part folded, I'm going to come back with the folded edge to wrap it around so it kind of hides that raw edge. Once you have that in place, now you're going to do 2 rows of stitching so that they're evenly spaced but more in the center. So what I did was I just made for sure I measured, see what it was, and then I didn't do that exact measurement so one was in the middle. I did one on each side of that middle of the line. And on your pointy edge, you are going to pull out your connector and your rectangular ring. So you will slide that rectangular ring onto the middle, and then you will slide this whole connector onto the middle of your strap. You're going to take the time to line everything up nice and evenly. Now, if your vinyl is a thinner vinyl like mine, you may want to add some stabilizer here. Also, the designer tells us we could add a rivet here for extra security, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to top stitch all around to secure this in place. So now that we got the strap sewn up, there's a couple other things we have to do. The first thing I did was I added a small angle on these straps. I'm going to sew my strap wrong side up, and so I want the angle to allow the strap to go slightly away from this grab handle. So this is the way mine will look. This is how I will baste it down. Also off camera, what I did was I drew a line according to the pattern measurements. I am going to go off camera after we baste on these straps, and I'm going to use my glue stick and the iron just to fold up the raw edge to that line and then iron it down. Then we will go on to the next steps. So let's go ahead and do the basting first, and then I will do my ironing off camera. Now that we have the strap anchor prepped, we're just going to flip it up. Now we're going to do 2 rows of top stitching here at the top to kind of secure that in place, but you can also definitely add some rivets. You could add rivets for both of the straps and the grab handles just for more security. Let's go ahead and take out those 2 pieces of webbing and our 2 strap connectors. Let's fold these connectors right sides together, and then let's slip a piece of webbing inside, and we want to leave an overhang just to help us with extra security there. Let's go ahead and add a clip, and then you're just going to sew with the seam allowance given the pattern. Make sure you back stitch really well here, and you're going to do that on one edge for both of these. After you get that sewn together, go ahead and flip it out. It is going to look like this, and we're just going to smooth that edge out. And we are going to sew all around this. We're going to sew all around the 3 sides. Then we will come back in and sew an additional set of stitches on the inside of these 2. We don't need to sew a second set along this bottom edge, the raw edge, but we'll sew 2 lines on both of these sides just to help keep everything nice and secure. This is how the first one looks. Let's go ahead and do those same steps on the other one. So I attached my first strap connector. The pattern tells you how far up, and you're going to go ahead and have that raw edge aligned with the raw edge of the back. Make sure your strap is going up. You're going to do the same thing on the other end, and we will just, I have that one just clipped into place, but both of them are up from the bottom the same amount. Both of them are both going to the inside, but you can see they're angled different ways, and you just baste that in place. And then your back's done, and we're ready to go ahead and attach everything. We are not going to add these straps to each other until we're done with the bag. I have found it's very tricky personally to kind of get everything with the hardware put together. So what I'm going to do is just kind of wrap up the straps to have them out of the way so they're not getting in the way while we're sewing up these final steps. It's time to put everything together to finish this bag. We've created all the components, so now we're going to pull out that gusset, and then we're going to pull out our exterior front and the lining front. For my lining front, I'm going to choose for it to be the one without the zipper pocket on here. I feel like that will be best because there's a lot of bulk here. When I put these two pieces together, I felt back and forth as to if it could use some extra stabilizer. Since this is my first one, I'm going to go ahead and go with no extra stabilizer. So all of mine will just be the cotton woven, cotton canvas with the medium weight interfacing, but I did put some of the fleece in the zipper panels and definitely on the base. If it's a little slouchy at the end, you would just want to add some extra to yours, but that is how I'm leaving mine. First thing I did was I have center marks at the tops of both of the main panels and on my gusset. Probably be smart for me to go ahead and put those center marks at the bottoms too, but I didn't do it. Definitely would want to do that probably for yourself. So since I have two zippers, I don't have to worry about which side of the gusset I attach to the front. If you only have one pull, make sure you take that into account when you're attaching this gusset. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have my gusset right sides together with the exterior. I'm going to baste this first. You could choose to baste the lining first, whichever way you want to do it. I'm just doing it this way because it's the one I grabbed first. I am going to start by clipping all along this top edge just like I typically would do. We are going to be basting the gusset all around the exterior. Then we will come back and attach it to the lining. It is definitely going to be big and poofy. We're going to have to smush everything down. The designer does say it's a good place to use staples. I don't use staples, so I'm just going to have to wing it, I guess. I'm going to also start clipping now since I've got that top kind of stabilized here at the bottom. This will just help so that I can ease everything in hopes of getting everything symmetrical and having a nice shape whenever we're done with this bag. If I feel like I need to change my shape a little, I can do that, like if I need to pull it down, but I'm hopeful that this will fit everything nicely. Oh, it's fitting great. Wonderful, wonderful. Got it all clipped up. Everything looks great. I am going to start sewing it this way. So what I'm going to do is start basting all around this exterior, or around the gussets I should say, because I'm actually sewing on the lining side, but I'm attaching the exteriors. So now we have the exterior attached. Everything looks really good. we are going to now smush this down. This is going to be the tricky part. Let's go ahead and remark our center if you unclipped it like I did. So we're going to fold all this down, and we are attaching that lining to this spot. So we're going to have a lot of bulk inside there, so we'll have to make sure we hold on to things tight. And this is why she mentioned staples, because it's going to be poofy and it's going to want to slip. And so our job is to hold it, use hemostats, staples, glue, whatever you want to do to kind of get it. You can see even just right here, just clipping, it's going to be hard. So it will have some bulk. You can do it. But this is an alternative to binding. A lot of people hate to bind a bag, and so the designers try to help give us options so that we can birth a bag for these fun shapes instead of having to bind. Another reason why binding sometimes isn't used is because you do get kind of a hard ridge, and like your seam is kind of stiff and not as soft as a seam as it will be when you birth a bag. So that is some reasons why you will choose to, or the designer will choose to have that softer finish on a bag and to birth it. Another reason is when you open the bag up, you'll see a really clean, smooth look. You won't see that binding in there. So just some benefits to birthing versus binding. See this right here? We're going to push and spread that out. We don't want a big poofy seam there when we're sewing this area. If we happen to feel that trying to poof up again, we will have to pull it flat, because if we sew over a big pucker, it just will not look good. We're going to be sewing with the full seam allowance. When you're sewing this, you're going to start, and it's going to be going really well. When you get up here, you have to check each stitch to make sure you're not sewing over any bumps or ridges. Okay, let's make sure we lock in these stitches. Since this will be a little bit of a tricky spot, you'll definitely want to watch to make sure you don't run out of bobbin. You will be so sad if you're all the way at the other side and you're like, wait a minute, I ran out of bobbin. Okay, that is finished. I'm just going to look, see how my seam allowance looks, and now I'm going to turn this out. I'm going to check it really well. Make sure everything looks good. If it looks good, I'll baste around the bottom. Then I'll do that same thing on the other side. I see just a slight pucker right there, but not enough to worry about. Other than that, the shape looks great. Let me see if you guys can see that on camera. Okay, everything looks good there. Now what I want to do is I'm just going to base all across this entire bottom. I'm just going to sew from one end to the other and get this all attached. That way whenever I'm adding that base, it's just going to be a little bit easier for me. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it just like this. I'm going to do those exact same steps to attach the back exterior to this and the back lining to this, and we will sew it all the same way. Then we will come back and add our base to it. I have everything sewn around the bag. I have it turned lining side out. The exterior is inside. I have the centers marked on the base and on the bag. So what we want to do now is we want to sew this face on right sides together. We will have to bind around this lining part, but that's the only part we'll need to bind. And then other than that, all we'll have to do is just add those little adjustable bars to the strap, and then we're done. This bag is a little bit time consuming, but I really think it's such a cute design that it's worth it. Put in the effort and get a really nice shape with a lot of features. If you want to make it quicker, leave out the pockets, use that front panel, the plain front panel, and you'll get a lot quicker of a sew. I'm just matching up all these quarter marks, clipping all the way around. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to baste with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to attach it. Then I will come back with the binding and sew the full seam allowance. I'm just going to use a waterproof canvas. I'm just going to fold it around this base, the seam, around this seam, the raw edge, and sew it that way. I'm not going to do a fold over binding, just to kind of keep it quick and simple. Plus that waterproof canvas will help this base have a little bit more security. I'm going to push everything down so I can get in here and just make sure that I keep those edges lined up while I'm sewing around. I'm using my hemostats just to pull on this curve because it's trying to slip a little bit. Not too bad, I just don't want to fight with it. Rolling the bag up. Kind of shifting a little so I can get that straight edge again. Okay, so I have the base attached to the bag. Now I just basted this, just an 1/8 of an inch around. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go cut my binding, and then I'm just going to clip it around and then sew with that full seam allowance in the pattern to attach it here. And finished adding the binding onto the bag, so now it's just time to turn the bag right side out. Now I do know I'll have to do some shaping. Even before the shaping, the bag looks great. The base is very sturdy and it has a great shape. I'm honestly completely okay that I did not add more interfacing to it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some time to clip all these seams. I'm going to put clips all around here on both the front and on the back to kind of help those seams to go where I want them to go. So that is something I definitely want to do. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and start working on these straps. When editing the video, when I was showing how to add this adjustable bar, I realized that it was really out of screen. You really couldn't see a lot of detail, so I decided that I could redo that and just cut this clip in. That was an easy step because it was at the end of construction. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm just going to show you how you do that. First thing is if you know specifically who this is going to, you could go ahead and kind of measure to make sure you get the right length. I'm not doing that. I'm just going to kind of keep mine long. Go ahead and slide on your adjustable bar on the end. So let's show you how to do that step. You just make sure that your strap isn't twisted, and you can take it over that bar and then under that bar. After you get your adjustable bar on your webbing, then what you'll do is you'll take your strap with that rectangular ring and you're just going to feed it through. I'm going to feed it through so it goes under. And then I will just feed it back through my adjustable bar again. So I'll make a little loop there and just go up in the middle of that and then over that bar again. Once you get that pulled through, make sure you give yourself enough slack so that you can pull under that raw edge of the webbing. And then I will just fold it, add a clip there, and then I just take that over the machine and sew that. Now I'll go back to the original version of the video. Sorry. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go around and I'm going to clip on my edges and get a really nice finish on it. So I use these clips. I got them off Amazon and they're really good to kind of help get those seams to lay the way you want them to without causing any damage to the bag. So I'm going to leave it like that for a little bit, and then when I take them out, we'll look at it again and see how it looks after it's been shaped. So here is the completed Mazie mini backpack from Stitches by Christy. This pattern comes together in such a fun way with a lot of great features. It does require a little bit more effort, but I do feel it's worth it. This will be a great backpack for a kid who's going back to school. It would also be a great bag for anybody who is in college or who just works. So let's look at some of the features. We have this adorable little pocket here in the front. We have the slip pockets on the side that are kind of opened up there, so they're not just flat, they're kind of pushed out so that you can get more things in there. Perfect for water bottles and things like that. We have a full open. The lining fits wonderfully. See if I can see that good. We have a zipper pocket here. If you wanted, you could add that key binder there. We have a zipper pocket back here. This pattern has plenty of features, plenty of storage. It's a great pattern. I used all materials from J&R Edwards in my bag. I'm going to have a link for their website with a discount code that you can use. I am also going to have a link for the pattern. Thank you guys again for watching another tutorial of mine, and I hope today that you're able to sew something that may be a little challenging to you, maybe a little bit more of a in-depth sew, so that when you complete it, you can just be so proud of yourself and so thankful that you were able to do it and all the skills you've learned so far. So I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks for watching.